The Idols are some of the most polarizing characters to ever come into the contest. They have an interesting story behind them, very interesting gameplay mechanics, and overall just a lot of interesting things that happened with the community and involvement with them. And if we go all the way back to 2024, we can see kind of where the Eidols came from, because not only did we get our first Eidol in this month, they were also the predecessor of the widely loved Deathless Champions. The Deathless Champions were characters that you would work for to get pieces in many different types of content through many different challenges to form the character, and then eventually culminate with the fifth and final character, and also culminating with a big quest you could do, taking them into Necropolis, working as a team, collectively each doing their own thing to get the ultimate prize, which was Awakening, Deathless Thanos, and then like a Maestro and Titan Crystal and a bunch of cool stuff. But then the Eidols came out, which were again meant to be the predecessor to this, and they were different. They started with Isophyne. Isophyne came out initially as a free Banquet champion, and Isophyne was meant to be a Serpent counter, which at the time was the objectively hardest defender in the game, the most frustrating, polarizing defender in the entire game. It was Serpent, and she came out to destroy him. However, Isophyne had a bit of another problem on her hands, because while she could take Serpent, she could only do it as well as the other Serpent counters that people were commonly using could, and didn't really branch outside the class very well. And so, the fact that she also needed to be awakened was a bit interesting, because she didn't come with a free dupe, like she did in the Banquet. You had to spend enough units, open enough Banquet crystals to be able to get the dupe, which most people weren't able to do. But she was free at the end of the day, so if you could get an Awakening gem, you could awaken your Isophyne that way. If you wanted to go ahead and get the dupe, you'd still have to pay a price for it, and that would kind of be a common theme with the Eidols, was you'd have to pay a price for the champion, as I'm sure you all know where I'm going with this. So Isophyne was ultimately just an underwhelming champion, because it just didn't feel like she did enough in the game. What she was meant to do, she did very good. Be a very strong nullifier, be a very strong Serpent counter, a champion with really good immunities like Bleed and Cold Snap. Very important for a lot of different nodes. Even on the war map, she was still able to do some things, but she just didn't age, because Nullify and her targets, they just didn't really age either. And again, she was a great Serpent counter, but not better than the other commonly used Serpent counters. So if you have Spiral, if you had Kushala, they're just gonna move forward, and she isn't. So yeah, it was just a really unfortunate circumstance for Isophyne, but that was not going to be the last Idol, of course, because we would get 3 more after her, but from widely different acquisition methods. And so our second Idol to come to the contest is Lumatrix. He dropped in April and is probably the strongest of the 4 of them, which is very interesting because the difference between Isophyne and Lumatrix from a power level perspective was massive. Lumatrix didn't come with just one essential, really good target matchup, being Serpent. Lumatrix came to completely abolish the entire science class and branch outside of the science class incredibly well. He's a champion who came without needing to place buffs, without needing to place debuffs, gain buffs, place debuffs, I mean. He makes his own openings without needing to ever parry, just makes it to where you're super easy for getting openings, so intercepting is not even something you have to do. You just have to charge your heavy, and there's your free opening right there. And his damage was just utterly ridiculous. He nukes things outside of the science class so well, and of course inside the science class equally as well. He's become one of the most crucial Alliance War champions as of late. Has Bleed and Rupture immunity, which is not a combination we've seen yet, and one that's very valuable for plenty of different things the contest has to offer. And he's just overall a ridiculous champion. Like, I'm gonna rank the 2024 champs, or 2025 champs later on in the year. And he's going to be, I'm just telling you right now, he's going to be in my top 5. He is that good. But the problem, of course, is this champ you had to pay to acquire. And this is maybe the first time that a champion was ever unobtainable without payment as a regularly released champion. Obviously, trophy champs are an exception. This was a champion who acted as a regularly released champion that you could not get unless you spent money or placed super high in Celestial and BGs or ranked really high in the arena, which no one's going to do because they don't want to ruin their life, you know? But that just came off as a bit of a sore thumb, because not only was, again, this is the first champ that you had to really pay to win, essentially, for a regular release, he was miles better than Isophyne. And that makes a big difference, because the free-to-play Eidol was pretty bad, and the first pay-to-win Eidol was pretty broken. Now, I have all 4 of these Eidols on my account. I think they are a bit of I'd say they're a very fair price, and I think they're all worth getting for the price that they have. But my problem with the Eidols is the fact that you physically cannot get them unless you drop cash on them. So, the fun thing about the Deathless Champions release, right, was the fact that you would be taking a bunch of different challenges, you'd be going to do a bunch of different things throughout the entire game to collect pieces for them. And to be fair, that's kind of what the Eidols were doing. You'd be getting the essence from many different game modes. The problem is, you'd get the essence, and once the 4-month period of getting the essence is over, if you're a free-to-play player, and you didn't place in C5 or C6 or top of arena, you'd be stuck at 9, and the amount you need to get an Eidol was 12. So if you're a free-to-play player, that 9 essence that you spent the 4 months getting doesn't mean anything, because you can't use it. You could get the 6-star, but no one's going to be playing 6 stars anymore in this modern game, right? Especially for someone who is doing everything that the game has to offer. They don't really want 6 stars anymore. They want 7 stars. And so a 7-star Lumatrix was just something that physically was unobtainable. And of course, that would carry on to the next Eidol being Solvarch. Now, Solvarch had a bit of an interesting release, because I'd say initially this guy was not that hyped at all. But I think, especially as of recently, people have realized how good Solvarch is. Now, Solvarch is a bit different than Lumatrix. He is someone who is going to completely wreck the mutant class, like Lumatrix did to Science. But he's not going to be a generic, like, you can use this guy for a large variety of different matchups outside the Science, or outside of the mutant in his case. But what Solvarch was the king at, the absolute game changer champion at, was dealing with energy damage. And that's something that matters a little bit less in Battlegrounds attack, but it matters a whole lot in Alliance War. And just like Lumatrix, Solvarch became one of the quintessential champions for Alliance War as of recently. Because there's so many nodes that are going to deal energy damage, there's so many different defenders just on the map that are going to do energy damage to you that you might not even see on BG's defense too often, and Solvarch was just so good for them, and is so good for them. On top of that, Solvarch, I think, is the best defender, maybe outside of the last champion that we're going to talk about, for BGs. So not only is he completely shutting off the mutant class in Battlegrounds, he also could just get dropped on defense and put in a lot of work if you didn't get that mutant defender that you drafted him for. And so the fact that he was such a good two-way just means that he is kind of an auto for a BG's deck. And same thing with Lumatrix. Lumatrix you can drop on defense. While not as strong as Solvarch on defense, that was totally an option you had. Those two are both two-way champions, whereas Isophyne just isn't a two-way champion. And so, again, Solvarch and Lumatrix are just these cracked BG's champs, and Isophyne isn't. And the acquisition to them just feels wrong. Like, you can get these really, really good BG's attackers if you pay the $30 for them. And $30, quite frankly, is not much in comparison to pretty much everything you're spending in this game. But $30 is still money, and it's still something that a lot of people aren't willing to spend. And so while, again, I think this is a very fair price, it's just as good as the Platinum track, which is also like the best value you could get in the game, it's still money, and money is very important. So I don't know, I just think the acquisition didn't feel right when you could also get these champions for free as Deathless champs, when you could get the Deathless champs for free. Now, one important distinction between the Eidols and the Deathless champs, however, is the Eidols are objectively just more powerful than the Deathless champs. So the Deathless champs being free makes more sense because they aren't as strong as the Eidols. Like, when's the last time you used Deathless She-Hulk? Probably a bit of a bad thing to say considering she was very good for this Coliseum event. But in general, Deathless She-Hulk just isn't as strong anymore, and she is the strongest of the 4 Deathless champs that isn't Thanos. Because Thanos, of course, is arguably the strongest Cosmic in the game, but he was your reward for collecting all of the 4. And the 4 Deathless champs, again, that aren't Thanos, just don't do anything. Like, Guillotine's cool, Deathless Vision's getting buffed because of how bad he is, Deathless King Groot is terrible and didn't get buffed, and Deathless She-Hulk is pretty decent, but just doesn't do enough in the modern game. But all these Eidols at least have a place in the game. I'd argue that even the worst Eidol by far, in Isophyne, is better than every Deathless champ except for Deathless She-Hulk. And so then we come to Imperiosa, which is the newest Eidol, the one that just came out this month, and it's still the same thing. It's just a new Eidol champ that you can get by spending money, and is going to be a very strong champion for Battlegrounds. I think she's going to be a very strong Beaches attacker. She's going to have some strengths on defense because she is going to be annoying if you don't draft the counter for her. Granted, a lot of Mystics are going to be good for her, but she still is a defender where it's like, if you can't get a Mystic, dude, this champ is going to suck to fight. Now, I do think she's going to be weaker than Lumatrix and Solvarch overall in the game, but who knows what, time will do to her. Maybe she'll age very, very well. And the tech class being probably the worst defender class if you're putting them against Science and Mutant right now, definitely isn't doing her any favors. But again, this champion is just good. She's good, just like the other 2 Eidols and arguably the other 3 Eidols were. And the Deathless champs just aren't. I don't think they were good when they came out. And again, Deathless She-Hulk is pretty decent. Deathless Thanos is cracked, but he was your reward for putting in all that effort. And there is no reward for the Eidols. You just get the 4 of them, which, they're an award for themselves, right? Because you paid to get them, and they're all strong champs. Like, that is your reward. You get good champs. But on top of that, there's no cumulative challenge for them, like there was the Deathless event. Now, I don't think one would be possible, because you can't really make a quest, you can't really make a challenge for the Eidols when not even half the player base has them. It doesn't make sense. You can't just make a challenge that only part of the game can even complete if they spent or didn't spend. But still, it feels like it's just a bit anticlimactic. Like, you got these 4 champs, and they don't really have something to do together. They have synergies with each other, which is pretty cool, and you even use those synergies sometimes in Alliance War, but it just feels, again, anticlimactic. I think that's the perfect word, because I think the Deathless champs had a really great culmination to them with that challenge, and the Eidols are just here. And maybe we'll get something in the future for the Eidols, but as of now, I just think they were a big disappointment, a huge slap in the face to the free-to-play community, who was just getting resources that were completely pointless if they didn't spend. And I love that they're great champs. I love playing my Eidols. I really like using my Lumatrix because he's at rank 4. I have Isophyne and Imperiosa at rank 2 and Solvarch at rank 3. But at the end of the day, I just think they were a very polarizing release, And I get it. As the game evolves, Kabam needs to make money, and the easier way for them to do that is with champion acquisition now, because we, as a player base, are much better at the game than we were years ago. We're not spending money on items anymore, so we have to have something to spend money on to keep the lights on. And recently, that's been champions. I like how they're moving to cosmetics. I like how they're just moving to different things that aren't necessarily just champion acquisition for money. I say that, and we're coming to the banquet event, which kind of is that, but they are still giving a lot of free access to these new champions, so you're still going to be able to get some, but still, it's just, you know, we're not spending money on items, we have to spend money on something for the game to work, and that's just champion release as of recently. You look at events, and it's been the same thing. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little spiel I had about the Eidols. I've been meaning to make this video for a while, and with Imperiosa coming out recently, it makes sense to do it now. So, hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next one.